The snow fell in fat, lazy flakes against my windshield as I sat in my rental car, engine idling, staring at the house I hadn't seen in 4 years. 42 Maple Street looked smaller than I remembered, but the warm glow spilling from every window made it seem like a Christmas card come to life. Through the front window, I could see shapes moving around, my family, gathered without me, the way they had been every Christmas since I'd stopped coming home. My name is Eli Navarro, and I'm 29 years old. 4 years ago, I walked away from this house after my father told me I was no longer his son. Tonight, I was about to walk back in, carrying a secret that could change everything. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. I pulled the envelope from my jacket pocket, feeling the weight of the check inside. $3 million. Not a loan, not an investment. A gift. A thank you for raising me, for sacrificing so much to give me opportunities they never had. The letter I'd written explained everything: how I'd built my company in secret, how the acquisition had just closed, how I'd thought about them every day despite the silence between us. The front door opened, and my cousin Luis bounded out to grab something from a car in the driveway. He was taller now, maybe 17, with the same dark hair and serious eyes that ran in our family. He hadn't seen me yet, but watching him move with that familiar Navarro confidence made my chest tighten with something that felt like homesickness. I turned off the engine and stepped into the cold. The snow crunched under my boots as I walked up the driveway, past the inflatable Santa that had been a fixture here for as long as I could remember. The sound of laughter and conversation grew louder as I approached the front door, and I could smell the familiar scent of my mother's tamales drifting from the kitchen. I knocked softly, then pushed the door open before anyone could answer. The living room fell silent as I stepped inside, snow melting on my shoulders. My father, Marco, stood by the fireplace, a beer in his hand, his face cycling through surprise, confusion, and something that might have been anger. My mother, Isabel, was frozen in the doorway to the kitchen, a dish towel clutched in her hands. "Merry Christmas," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the way my heart was hammering against my ribs. Tia Rosa was the first to move, crossing the room in 3 quick steps to pull me into a fierce hug. "Mijo," she whispered, and I could hear the tears in her voice. "You're home. What are you doing here?" My father's voice cut through the moment like a blade. He hadn't moved from his spot by the fireplace, but his posture had shifted, becoming rigid and defensive. "I wanted to see you," I said, keeping my tone calm. "All of you. It's Christmas." Luis appeared at my shoulder, grinning widely. "Primo, I can't believe you're actually here. Wait until you see what I'm working on. I've been coding this game engine, and I think you'd really—" "Luis," my father interrupted sharply, "go help your mother in the kitchen." The boy's face fell, but he obeyed, shooting me an apologetic look as he disappeared through the doorway. The silence that followed was thick and uncomfortable, broken only by the sound of Christmas music playing softly from the kitchen radio. My mother finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Elias, you look good." I smiled at her, remembering how she'd always called me by my full name when she was nervous. "Thank you, Mommy. You look beautiful." She ducked her head, but I caught the small smile that crossed her face before my father's voice boomed across the room again. "You can't just show up here after 4 years and expect everything to be normal," he said, setting his beer down with enough force to make the mantel decorations rattle. "You made your choice, Elias. You chose your lifestyle over your family." The word hung in the air like a physical thing, and I felt the familiar sting of rejection wash over me. But I'd prepared for this. I'd known it wouldn't be easy. "I didn't choose anything over family, Papa," I said quietly. "I chose to be honest about who I am." "Honest?" He laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You threw away everything we worked for. Medical school, a real future, respect in the community. For what? To play with computers?" I reached into my jacket and pulled out the envelope, holding it between us like a white flag. "I came here to give you something. To thank you for everything you sacrificed to raise me." My father's eyes narrowed as he looked at the envelope. "What is that?" "A Christmas gift," I said simply. "For both of you." Dinner was a minefield of forced conversation and awkward silences. I sat between Luis and Tia Rosa, trying to ignore the way my father's eyes kept drifting to the envelope I'd placed beside my plate. My mother had barely touched her food, pushing rice around with her fork while stealing glances at me when she thought no one was looking. "So, Eli," Tia Rosa said, her voice deliberately bright, "what have you been up to? Still in Boston?" "Actually, I've been in San Francisco for the past 2 years," I said, grateful for the opening. "I started a company with my friend Grace. We developed AI software for healthcare systems." "AI?" Luis perked up, ignoring his father's warning look. "That's so cool. What kind of algorithms did you use?" I started to answer, but my father's voice cut across the table. "Enough with the computer talk. Some of us are trying to eat." The table fell silent again, and I watched my mother's face crumple slightly. She'd always hated conflict, had always been the one to smooth things over when Marco's temper flared. But tonight she seemed smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of years of choosing silence over confrontation. I picked up the envelope, feeling the weight of the check inside. "Papa, Mommy, I wanted to give you this. It's important." My father's jaw tightened. "I don't want anything from you, Elias. We've managed just fine without your help." "Please," I said, extending the envelope toward him. "Just open it." He stared at it for a long moment, then snatched it from my hands with a sharp movement. He tore it open roughly, and I watched his face as he read the letter I'd written. His expression shifted from irritation to confusion to something that looked like rage. "What is this?" he demanded, holding up the check. "Some kind of joke?" "It's not a joke," I said quietly. "My company was acquired last month. For $15 million. I wanted to give you $3 million as a thank you for everything you did for me." The words hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. My mother's fork clattered to her plate, and Luis's eyes went wide. Tia Rosa leaned forward, her face sharp with interest. $15 million? My father repeated, his voice dangerously quiet. "Yes," I said. "I know it doesn't fix anything between us, but I wanted you to have it. You sacrificed so much." "Sacrificed?" My father's voice exploded across the room as he shot to his feet. "You think this is about money? You think you can just waltz back in here and buy our forgiveness?" "That's not what I'm trying to do," I said, but he was already advancing on me, the check crumpled in his fist. "This is exactly what you're trying to do. You're trying to show off, to prove that you were right to throw away everything we planned for you. Medical school, a real profession, respect." "I am successful," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. "I built something from nothing. I employ 30 people. I'm helping revolutionize healthcare technology." "You're a disappointment," he snarled, and the word hit me like a physical blow. A disappointment who thinks he can buy his way back into this family. I stood up slowly, my hands shaking. Around the table, my family watched in stunned silence. My mother was crying now, tears streaming down her face, but she said nothing. She never said anything when it mattered. "I'm not trying to buy anything," I said, my voice barely steady. "I was trying to say thank you. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry for disappointing you, for not being the son you wanted, for not being able to change who I am." I looked around the table one last time, at Luis's stricken face, at Tia Rosa's angry tears, at my mother's broken silence. My father stood there, chest heaving, the check still clutched in his fist. "Keep the money," I said quietly. "Or don't. It doesn't matter anymore." I walked to the door, pulled on my coat, and stepped back into the snow. Behind me, I could hear my father's voice, still shouting, but I couldn't make out the words anymore. The cold air hit my face like a slap, and I realized I was crying. Just vor. I got in my car and drove away, leaving my family behind once again. In the rearview mirror, I watched the warm glow of the house disappear into the darkness, and I knew with absolute certainty that I would never come back. The check lay forgotten on the dining room table, a $3 million reminder of a love that had been offered freely and rejected completely. My downtown apartment felt like a tomb when I walked in. The Christmas tree Grace had insisted I buy stood in the corner, its lights twinkling cheerfully in the darkness, mocking the hollow feeling in my chest. I dropped my keys on the kitchen counter and stared out the floor-to-ceiling windows at the city below. Boston sparkled with holiday lights. Families gathered in warm homes, everyone celebrating except me. I replayed the evening in my mind, searching for the moment when everything went wrong. Maybe it was when I mentioned the money. Maybe it was the second I walked through that door. Maybe it was 4 years ago when I told them I was gay. Or 6 years ago when I dropped out of medical school. Maybe it was always going to end this way, no matter what I did. My phone buzzed. Grace. "How did it go?" she asked before I could even say hello. I sank onto my couch, still wearing my coat. "About as well as you'd expect." "That bad?" "Worse." I told her everything. The silence, the shouting, the way my father's face had twisted with rage when he saw the check. "I actually thought the money would help, Grace. I thought it would prove that I wasn't the failure they believed I was." "Oh, honey." Her voice was soft with sympathy. "You know that's not what this was about, right?" I rubbed my face with my free hand. Part of me did want their approval. "I know you told me not to expect anything, but I couldn't help hoping that maybe this time would be different." "There's nothing wrong with hoping," she said. "But you can't keep lighting yourself on fire to keep them warm." Telling and preparing this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I stared at the Christmas tree, remembering how excited my mother used to get decorating our tree when I was little. She'd let me hang the ornaments wherever I wanted, even if they were all clustered in one spot. When did it become so complicated, Grace? When did loving my parents become this transaction? "It was always a transaction with them," she said gently. "They just changed the currency. First it was grades, then it was medical school, then it was who you loved. You don't owe love to people who only love a version of you." After we hung up, I sat in the darkness for a long time, watching the snow fall against my windows. Somewhere across the city, my family was probably cleaning up from dinner, my mother washing dishes while my father retreated to his study. I wondered if they were talking about me, or if they'd already moved on, grateful to have the uncomfortable reminder of their disappointment out of their house. I didn't know that at that very moment, Tia Rosa was staring at the crumpled envelope my father had thrown on the dining room table, wondering what her nephew had tried so desperately to give them. The next morning, I woke to 17 missed calls from a number I didn't recognize. My phone buzzed again as I reached for it. "The same unknown number," I answered, my voice thick with sleep. "Eli?" It was Tia Rosa, and she sounded like she'd been crying. "Mijo, I need to tell you something." I sat up, suddenly alert. "What's wrong? Is someone hurt?" "I found your letter," she said, her voice breaking. "I found the check." My stomach dropped. "Rosa, $3 million, Eli. $3 million, and the most beautiful letter I've ever read, and they threw it away like garbage." I closed my eyes, feeling that familiar ache in my chest. "It doesn't matter anymore." "It does matter," she said fiercely. "You thanked them, Eli. You thanked them for everything, for raising you, for loving you, for giving you opportunities. You wrote about how proud you were to be their son, how you hoped the money could help them retire, could give them the life they deserved. And they didn't even read it before they rejected it." I could hear her moving around, probably pacing her kitchen the way she always did when she was upset. "I confronted them this morning. Your father was in the kitchen, acting like nothing had happened, and I laid that letter on the table in front of him and your mother. What did they say? Your father tried to defend himself, said you were just trying to show off. But your mother—" Rosa's voice got quiet. "Your mother started crying." "Really crying, Eli?" She read every word of that letter, and I watched her face crumble. I got up and walked to my window, staring out at the city. It's too late, Rosa. I can't keep doing this. I know, Mijo. I know. But I needed you to know that someone in this family sees you. Really sees you. What you did. Coming home. Offering them that gift. Staying calm when they attacked you. That took courage. That took love. After she hung up, I sat on my couch for a long time, staring at the photo she'd texted me. My letter, wrinkled and torn, laid out on my parents' kitchen table. The check was there too, the numbers clear and stark against the white paper. $3 million. A fortune to most people, but to my parents it was just another disappointment, another way I'd failed to be the son they wanted. I didn't respond to Rosa's text. There was nothing left to say, but the silence in my family was about to break in ways I couldn't have imagined. That afternoon, Luis found a way to reach out to me through Instagram, his message simple and devastating. I heard what happened. I read your letter. I'm sorry they can't see how amazing you are. I stared at the message for a long time before responding. Thank you. That means more than you know. Can I ask you something? He wrote back. Were you scared? When you came out, when you left medical school, when you started your company, were you scared of disappointing everyone? I thought about his question, remembering the sleepless nights, the anxiety attacks, the constant voice in my head telling me I was making a mistake. Terrified, I typed back. Every single day. But I was more scared of living a lie. I think I understand now, he wrote. I've been so worried about making everyone proud that I forgot to think about what would make me proud of myself. That evening, Rosa called again. Luis got into a fight with his father, she said without preamble. He told him he wanted to be like you, said at least you were real. I felt a pang of guilt. I didn't mean for him to get in trouble. This isn't your fault, Eli. These kids are smart. They're watching. They're learning. Luis sees what your parents can't. That success isn't just about money or status. It's about being brave enough to be yourself. What did his father say? The same things your father said to you. That you're a bad influence. That you chose the wrong path. But Luis isn't buying it anymore. She paused. He asked me for your number. I told him he'd have to earn it by standing up for what he believes in. I smiled despite everything. He's braver than I was at his age. He learned from watching you, Rosa said. Whether you know it or not, you're changing this family. Maybe not your parents, but the next generation. That has to count for something. After we hung up, I realized she was right. I'd thought the check was my gift to my family, but maybe the real gift was showing Luis that there was another way to live, that you could choose authenticity over approval, that you could build something beautiful even after walking away from everything you were supposed to want. For the first time since Christmas Eve, I felt something other than sadness. I felt hope. Christmas Day found me in Grace's childhood home in Cambridge, a Victorian house that smelled like cinnamon and felt like warmth itself. Grace's mother, Mrs. Hahn, had insisted I come, wouldn't take no for an answer when Grace told her what had happened. Family isn't just blood, she'd said over the phone. Sometimes it's the people who choose to love you exactly as you are. I sat at their kitchen table, wearing a ridiculous sweater Mrs. Hahn had knitted for me, bright red with a reindeer that looked more like a confused dog. Grace's little nephew, Danny, was showing me his new coding kit, his eyes bright with the same passion I'd had at his age. Look, Uncle Eli, he said, using the title Grace had taught him. I made the LED blink in Morse code. I leaned over to examine his circuit board, feeling something ease in my chest. That's incredible, Danny. What message are you sending? Hello, world, he said proudly. Grace taught me that's what all programmers start with. Mrs. Hahn placed a plate of homemade dumplings in front of me, her hand briefly touching my shoulder. Eat, she said simply. You're too thin. I watched Grace's family move around each other with easy affection, her father helping her uncle with a crossword puzzle, her cousins arguing good-naturedly about a board game, her grandmother napping in the corner chair while chaos swirled around her. There was no performance here, no careful measuring of words or walking on eggshells. Just love, messy and unconditional and real. You're crying. Grace said quietly, settling into the chair beside me. I wiped my eyes, embarrassed. Sorry, I forgot what this felt like. What? Being wanted somewhere. I looked around the room, at all these people who'd welcomed me without question, who'd made space for me at their tables simply because Grace had asked them to. I spent so many years trying to earn my place in my own family that I forgot there were places where I already belonged. Grace squeezed my hand. This is your family too, you know. Has been for years. Later, after dinner, I helped Mrs. Hahn with the dishes, while Grace and Danny built a gingerbread house that looked more like a gingerbread earthquake. The kitchen was quiet, peaceful, steam rising from the warm, soapy water. Grace told me what happened, Mrs. Hahn said softly, her accented English careful and precise. With your parents. I nodded, not trusting my voice. When Grace came out to us, her father cried, she continued, scrubbing a pot with more force than necessary. Not because he was ashamed, but because he was scared the world would be cruel to her. We learned that our job wasn't to change Grace. Our job was to change the world that might hurt her. She handed me the pot to dry, her dark eyes serious. Your parents forgot their job, Eli, but that doesn't mean you stop being worthy of love. That night, I stayed over in Grace's childhood bedroom, surrounded by her old programming books and debate team trophies. Through the thin walls, I could hear the family getting ready for bed, the comfortable sounds of people who belonged to each other. For the first time since Christmas Eve, I slept deeply, dreamlessly, safely. Humun. I woke up the next morning with a decision crystallizing in my mind. I wasn't going to wait for my parents to love me anymore. I wasn't going to keep hoping for something that might never come. I was going to let go, completely and finally, and trust that I was enough just as I was. Si, miani hava riko la. I didn't know that while I was learning to let go, my mother was learning to hold on. Rosa called me 3 days after Christmas, her voice tight with something between anger and satisfaction. Your mother wrote you a letter, she said without preamble. A real letter, Eli. Not some half-hearted apology, but pages and pages of everything she should have said years ago. I was walking through the common, watching kids build snowmen with their parents. Did she send it? Your father found it first. They had a fight. The kind of fight that breaks things permanently. Rosa's voice dropped. She told him that he didn't love you, that he loved some imaginary version of you that never existed. She said that if he couldn't see what a gift you were, then maybe she'd been wrong about him too. I stopped walking, surprised by the surge of emotion that hit me. After all these years, my mother had finally spoken up. What did he say? He left, just walked out, hasn't been back since. Rosa paused. Isabel's been calling me every few hours, crying. She wants to send you the letter, but she's scared you won't read it. I found a bench and sat down, watching my breath cloud in the cold air. I don't know if I can, Rosa. I don't know if I'm strong enough to hope again. I understand, Mijo, but she's finally found her voice. Maybe that has to count for something. That evening, my mother's letter arrived in my email, forwarded by Rosa with a simple message. She wanted you to have this. I stared at the subject line for an hour before opening it. My dearest Elias, it began, and I could hear her voice in every word. She wrote about watching me grow up, about how proud she'd been, of my curiosity, my kindness, my determination. She wrote about the night I came out, how she'd wanted to hold me but didn't know how to stand up to my father. She wrote about the years of silence, how she'd convinced herself that staying quiet was the same as keeping peace. I failed you, she wrote, not because of who you are, but because I wasn't brave enough to protect who you are. You deserved a mother who fought for you, and instead, you got a mother who was too scared to even speak. The letter was raw, honest, devastating. She didn't ask for forgiveness, didn't make excuses, she just told the truth, finally and completely. At the end, she wrote, I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even expect you to respond. I just needed you to know that I see you now, really see you, and I am so proud of the man you've become. I read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. It was everything I'd wanted to hear for years, but now that I had it, I wasn't sure what to do with it. 2 weeks later, Rosa called with news that shouldn't have surprised me, but somehow did. "Your father went to the bank," she said. "He deposited the check." I was in my office, staring out at the San Francisco Bay, trying to focus on work. Of course he did. He also came to see me yesterday. Showed up at my door looking like he hadn't slept in days. Rosa's voice was carefully neutral. "He asked me to talk to you, to see if you'd meet with him." "What did you tell him?" "I told him that ship had sailed, that he'd had 29 years to love you and chose to waste most of them." She paused. "He cried, Eli." Actually cried. Said he didn't know how to fix what he'd broken. I closed my eyes, feeling tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. "It's not fixable, Rosa. Some things just break." "I know, Mijo." I told him the same thing. Her voice softened. But I also told him something else. I told him that the boy who left that check on Christmas Eve was better than any of us deserved. That if he wanted to honor your gift, he should spend the rest of his life learning to be worthy of the son he threw away. That afternoon, I ran into Luis at a coffee shop near MIT. He was hunched over a laptop, coding something that looked complex even to me. When he saw me, his face lit up with genuine joy. "Eli, what are you doing here?" "Meeting with some investors," I said, settling into the chair across from him. "What about you?" "Programming camp at MIT. I got a scholarship." His smile faltered slightly. "My dad doesn't know. He thinks I'm at soccer camp." I looked at this kid, this brave, brilliant kid, who was fighting the same battles I'd fought at his age, and felt something shift in my chest. Maybe my parents couldn't love me the way I needed to be loved. Maybe that wound would never fully heal. But Luis was here, choosing courage over comfort, and maybe that was legacy enough. "I'm proud of you," I told him, and watched his eyes fill with tears. "Whatever happens with your parents, with our family, I want you to know that you're not alone." He nodded, unable to speak, and I realized that this was what healing looked like. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but the simple act of breaking cycles, of loving the next generation better than we'd been loved ourselves. Grace called me on a Tuesday morning, her voice carefully controlled. "Your father showed up at my apartment yesterday." I nearly dropped my coffee. "What?" "He wanted to apologize to you. When I told him you weren't there, he asked me to pass along a message." She paused. I told him no. I could picture Grace standing in her doorway, arms crossed, protecting me even when I wasn't there. What did he say? That he was sorry. That he'd been wrong about everything. That he wanted another chance. Her voice hardened. "I told him that some chances expire, and his expired the moment he threw your letter in the trash." I sat in the silence that followed, feeling something close to relief. Grace had said everything I couldn't, had been the wall I needed when I was too tired to build one myself. He looked old, Eli, defeated, like he finally understood what he'd lost. She sighed. "But understanding doesn't erase 29 years of conditional love. Thank you," I said quietly, "for protecting me." "Always," she replied. "That's what family does." 3 months later, I met Luis at a small cafe in Harvard Square. He was taller now, more confident, wearing a MIT programming camp t-shirt with pride. When he saw me, he grinned and pulled me into a fierce hug. "I got in," he said, his voice bright with excitement. "Early admission to Stanford. Computer science." I felt tears prick my eyes. "Luis, that's incredible. I'm so proud of you." "I never would have applied if it wasn't for you," he said as we sat down. "You showed me it was possible to choose your own path." We talked for an hour about his plans, his dreams, his fears about disappointing his family. When it was time to leave, I handed him an envelope. "What's this?" he asked. "A scholarship fund," I said. "In your name. For kids who want to study technology but whose families don't understand. He opened it, read the letter inside, and started crying. "Eli, I can't. You already have," I said, pulling him into another hug. "You're going to help so many kids who feel lost the way we did." As I walked away from that cafe, snow beginning to fall again, I realized that this was what redemption looked like. Not my parents finally loving me, but me learning to love freely anyway. Not fixing what was broken, but building something new and beautiful from the pieces. I was finally completely free. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.